Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here this March 13th, 2025, a Thursday. Something that you guys didn't even notice, there's an awful lot of exponential functions. And we don't really understand how exponential functions actually work. It's hard to our brains to get around it. But I got a good example of an exponential function here from ChatGPT, and I'm going to read it to you guys, and it gives you an idea how an exponential function works. Uh, a stadium filling with a water drop, a thought experiment. It says it's often used to illustrate how an exponential growth works in a dramatic and surprising way. It says imagine you're standing in a massive football stadium, huge. I mean, holds like 40,000 people. And a single drop of water is placed at the center. Now you're up in the bleachers. You're way up there looking down. You have to have a binoculars to see this little drop of water, but it's a magical drop of water. It says this drop magically doubles in size every minute. So 60 seconds goes by, the drop's twice as big. So you're way up there in the stadium looking down with your binoculars, and you can barely see that little thing. And time's going by. It says at first the growth seems insignificant. A single drop turns into 2 drops and 4 drops and so on. However, due to the nature of exponential growth, things start to escalate rapidly. For the first 30 minutes while you're sitting up there, it seems like nothing's happening. You're still looking way down at the stadium and just barely see this little thing growing. But it says by 30 minutes, the water levels barely filled a fraction of the stadium. It says, but here's the twist. In just a few more minutes, the entire stadium is going to be completely filled with water and there is no escape. It says this example is a vivid way to understand how exponential growth can seem slow at first, but it quickly accelerates to immense and overwhelming levels in a very short span of time. There's something going on here, guys, and it's really big. And I really noticed it because I started this show 7 years ago. And I was able to easily keep up with the stories out there. It was like nothing. Jim Willie was on, and he was talking about something he called the quickening. I didn't take a whole lot of notice of that at the time when he was talking about the quickening, but he was absolutely right. I can see it now. And it's on an exponential. Look, it's been a slow sort of thing. When I first started this channel, the stories, I could follow them easily out there. Now I can't follow them. They're coming in too fast. They're just pouring in. And a lot of them are big things happening in the world. But it's like, do you ever notice all these threats coming at us? Like, one day you look on the news and it's like Moscow's being bombed and what's Putin going to do? And then you look over here and you say Ukraine's being bombed and the European Union's going to send these troops over here. And it's just a constant barrage. Trump's throwing more tariffs and Canada's making more tariffs. And that wasn't even here. It's starting to accelerate out of control. And I'll tell you what people are doing. They're closing their minds to it. It's too much to take in. It's coming too fast now, but it's this quickening or acceleration. And I believe that it's actually on an exponential function and it's heading towards something. Something monstrous, something absolutely huge that possibly I don't know, but it's going to end in something. Something's coming down the pike. Something really big. Let's call it a black swan because it's not here yet. But all of these things, ever since COVID, the quickening really spun up after COVID. And we haven't entered into a new normal. People think this is a new normal. This is not a new normal. Well, guess what, guys? I think I'm going to tell you guys a story. Take your mind off of stuff. We talked about this exponential function long enough. What do you guys think? Leave it in the comment section what you guys think about this exponential function. But I'm going to tell you a story that happened years ago. It's going to help you see how the money's on an exponential function to ruin. I remember that my parents came back, and I came up to Nova Scotia with my parents. They were looking for property because they were planning on moving back to Nova Scotia at some point. They were living in Florida, and I was living in Florida with them. This was a long time ago. I think I was about 18 years old. And they did move back to Nova Scotia, I think, when I was around 26. But I was about 18 years old, and they said, okay, we're going to take a vacation. We're heading up to Nova Scotia. We're going to look at properties and stuff, you know. And I was, hey, you know, I mean, 18-year-old guy. I was right on. Let's go. Hey, it's summertime here in Florida. It's really hot. It's nice and cool up there. So, yeah, we all headed up here on vacation. And I took my 10-speed bicycle with me. Put it in the back of the truck. I think my dad took the truck and took another vehicle with us. And we all came up on vacation. And so we were spending time at the highest and lowest tides in the world. There's a place, it's called the Bay of Fundy. And there's this enormous hill there. It's 600 feet high that rises off the edge of the Bay of Fundy to a place called Lookout. Lookout Mountain, they call it. It's not really a mountain because mountains, to be a mountain, has to be at least 2,000 feet high, and this is 600 feet high. Not really a mountain, but it does have some really spectacular views because there's cliffs and stuff there, and you can stand and look out over the valley, and you can see for like from 600 foot altitude, you can see for like 100 miles off in the distance. So it's really spectacular. And this long winding road comes down the mountain, twisty and turny and very, very steep. They don't make roads that steep in North America any longer. What they'll do is they'll change the road. They'll make it go down sideways down the mountain so it's not so steep. But this road comes almost practically right down the mountain. And if you can imagine the road itself, when it's coming almost straight down the mountain, how steep. You got to have good brakes on your car. Let's just put it that way. It's a 600-foot drop. It's a bit twisty too. There's a few twists and turns, but for the most part, it's coming straight down the mountain. You know? So at any rate, we were camping at a campground up on top of Lookout. Our family, you know. So I decided to go bike riding that day on my 10-speed bicycle. So early that morning, I think I had a little backpack or something, and I had my bike, and my dad, he was going to go visit some people he knew, you know, in the middle of the valley, which was about, I don't know, maybe 50 miles away, further down the valley, I don't know, 40 miles away, something like that, 40 or 50 miles away. And he left to visit them, and I was leaving too. We were both going down the mountain, and he had his car, and I had my bicycle. You know what? Back in those days, I was a little bit, what do you call it? I don't know. 18-year-old guys are that way. They're impetuous a little bit. I use that word, impetuous. So I got on my 10-speed, and there's a blue colored 10-speed bicycle. Didn't have any helmets back then, just a t-shirt and jeans. And I started to go down the mountain. He was going down the mountain behind me in the car, and my dad. And he paced me up to 44 miles an hour. That don't sound like much. You're saying, oh, that's nothing, 44 miles an hour. I'm going to tell you guys what. When you're on a bicycle coming down a hill at 44 miles an hour, 44 miles an hour is unbelievably fast on a bicycle. Unbelievably fast. I navigated the twists and turns all the way down that mountain. And I'm going to tell you what, by the time I got to the bottom, my eyes were tearing so bad I couldn't see. My dad said, I pulled over, he pulled over, he said, you're doing 44 miles an hour at your fastest speed coming down that mountain. I wouldn't do anything like that ever now. I know better, than do stuff like that. But back in those days, it was different worlds. So here's where the economic point comes in. I believe I had $15 Canadian. Now, $15 Canadian right now is only worth about $12 American or $11 American. So, if you're from America, that would be like me having 11 bucks. $15 Canadian. But Canadian back then, I think, was worth equal or par to American, or maybe ever so slightly more. Uh, but I went out for the day, and it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, when we went down the mountain. And my dad went off one way toward the relatives, and I kind of followed along, but he was just speeding off at 50 miles an hour. By the time I got down to the bottom of the mountain, I was going regular bike speed, which is about maybe, I don't know, 12 miles an hour, maybe 15 miles an hour, pedaling, just on a flat road, not real fast. So I biked, and I was actually heading in the same direction my dad was going, but a lot slower. Well, I biked all that morning, and I made it to the spot where he went, like 40 or 50 miles away, you know? And I spent a little bit of time there with them. And then I got on my bike and I started to head back. And on the way back, I stopped at a restaurant here in Canada that's kind of exclusive to Canadians. It's called Swiss Chalet. Uh, and they're a nice little restaurant. I don't know if they have them in the States, the franchise. But they serve like chicken and chips and pies and stuff like that. So I went inside for a meal. I had a big dinner in a Swiss Chalet. And I think it was like something like $6.50, including the tip. Just starting to tell you how things have changed. And then after I went to Swiss Chalet for dessert, I went to, there was a Sobeys there. There's like a shopping mall there. It's like like they have these little shopping malls, like a couple restaurants and a little shopping mall. And there was a Sobeys there. I went into Sobeys and I got two lobsters. They were called canner lobsters back then, and what they were is they were like the smaller lobsters. I think they were like 1 pound or something, or if I remember right. And they were like $2.50 a piece. I bought a couple of those. And I still had, I went to as a young fella, I went and I got myself a couple other things because I had some money left over. I got some drinks and stuff because I had some money left over. And I still had money left over after buying a complete quarter chicken dinner, fries, a drink, dessert, and then went and bought two lobsters, and then bought drinks, and still had money left over, and only had 15 bucks. I started on my way back home. So I had tied my drinks and stuff to the little rack in the back of the bike, a little saddle rack. I tied them with a bungee cord or whatever, my drinks, and whatever was left. I think I ate all the lobster, to tell you the truth. It was all cooked already. It was like they were red, and they were about, I don't know, maybe yay long, and they had been cooked, and they had been wrapped in plastic, like, and they were in the part of the store where they sell seafood and stuff. $2.50 a piece, I think they were. Imagine, imagine, imagine. And boy, that was delicious. And I headed on home, and I stopped in a little park on the way home. Cracked a couple of the drinks I had with me. Leaned back on the picnic bench and watched the birds and stuff and the breeze and everything. But by that time, I biked about 60 miles or 70 miles. I'd biked a long way. I'd been biking basically all day long, most of the day. And I started to head on back home toward the campground in this 600-foot high mountain. So it was a lovely day, a lovely afternoon. And, I mean, nothing really all that special happened that particular day, except I did go over a railroad track on the way home. And the track was sticking up. Like, it wasn't, the highway they had not done a perfect job of the, the track, the actual train track was actually sticking up about 2 inches off of the pavement. And my bike tire hit that on the way home, and I bent a rim. So my bike was going, but I was still able to ride on it, and I kept going, with the bent rim. So I hit the foot of the mountain. I started climbing. Now, after biking, I don't know, maybe 70 miles, I don't know, 80 miles even. I biked a long way. I went way down into the valley. Uh, and I hit the foot of that mountain, and I started to climb it. And then I said, oh my gosh, this is a miserable climb. 600-foot climb is steep. So I climbed about, because I was already tired after biking all that way, I climbed about, I don't know, maybe 100 feet, and I started to get tuckered. And back when I was 18, now I couldn't do anything like that now. I mean, I don't have that much energy to do that trip that day. I mean, that was like, but young men are able to do stuff like that. And so I was able to climb about the first 100 feet of the mountain, and I started to get really tired. And I said, I got to have a rest. So I went over, sat down. I climbed over the ditch and sat down on the edge of the woods, and I found a stump there, and I sat down on the stump, laid my bike down next to the stump. So I was just sitting there relaxing and stuff, and I think I had another drink, having another little drink, and cooling off and resting to make the rest of the climb. And guess who come by? Pop and Mom in the car. Here they come around the winding road, coming up the winding road, And I saw them coming, and I stood up on the side of the road there in the woods, and I was waving my arms back and forth, waving my arms, And he went driving right on by me. Left me there with another 500 feet to climb. Oh man, that was miserable seeing them go right on by. So anyway, I got down and I did the extra 500 feet. By the time I led that last 100 feet climb to the pinnacle where the campground was, man, I was getting pretty darn tuckered, I'll tell you. But that was quite a day, and I did sleep really good that night because we were tenting, and I was in my tent. I was just like songwood snoring all night long because of all that exercise I got. And if people got exercise like that every day, they'd be in some good shape. Anyway, listen, guys, I hope you're having a great afternoon. Oh, and another thing, just before I go, I wanted to say one little thing about them Canadian tariffs and stuff. Honest to God, this just seems so bizarre to me. Somebody on my comment section come in and said, "Did you seen the movie Canadian Bacon?" Now, I did see that movie and remember that movie from a long, long time ago, and I'd forgotten all about it. But this is so stupid what's going on. That movie was made for a comedy. Nobody ever thought something as ridiculous as that would actually come true. Is this a joke? We are moving into such a bizarre world right now. And this is just part of this whole thing I was telling you guys about. And I believe it's on an exponential function. And I believe it's heading towards something really big. And very soon. And it all seems like all of these problems that are in this, and a lot of them are on an exponential function, like the fiat currencies are on an exponential function. It seems like the diseases out there that want to attack humanity are an exponential function. It seems like the volcanoes out there are on an exponential function. They're all building up pressure, especially Yellowstone. It just seems like there's so many different things. I mean, I could go on and list them all. But it didn't used to be like this. And you know, the kids that are growing up now, maybe they're starting to get used to it this way. But it wasn't like this when I was growing up. It wasn't like this at all. The world was a calm place. There wasn't like 1,000 news stories coming every day with bizarre stories. That's things that just like, did that really happen? You're like, is this really happening? Am I in the real world? Let me pinch myself for a second and just see what's going on. You know? Anyway, listen, guys, have a great afternoon. Bye bye.